I decided to major in art before starting college. Every pragmatic parent's dreams to hear their kids say that they wanted to major in art after all. I ended up at a state school in the heart of what's called the Bridgewater Triangle. The Bridgewater Triangle is this kind of legendary hotspot of paranormal activity in Massachusetts. Everything from ghosts, aliens, the skunk ape, the Dover demon, ritualistic sacrifice, it's just a nutty part of the state with all of these different stories. Now, my college was built on the bones of an old town with its old buildings serving a very different purpose from what they did today. With the various buildings on campus at one point used for everything from a woman's teaching school to a observatory to a gymnasium, all that kind of stuff. And in fact, the art building was built on an old gymnasium. It didn't take long for me to hear the stories about a ghost in the art building. You could be in any part of the art building facilities after hours if you wanted. So, folks were always there late at night and they had all these different stories. They'd be walking past the elevator and the doors would suddenly open, followed by a burst of air. Or they'd be walking on the first or second floor hallways and they'd suddenly hear footsteps getting closer to them from behind. But upon turning around, there wouldn't be anyone there. Sure, people heard stories and retold those stories. They become urban legends. A friend relaying a friend's roommates, cousins ghost story from college. So I was very skeptical and did not want to buy into any of these kind of stories at first, especially since I was going to have to spend so much time there at night. At one point, I was chatting with the art department chair, this guy named Dan. I changed his name for the sake of the story, who had a doctoral degree in art history. And he'd been teaching at the college for, a couple of decades. My sister had gone there 6 years prior, for example, and he remembered her. So during this conversation, I bring up the stories I heard. I was expecting this guy who was really reserved and calm and academic with a doctoral degree to just kind of laugh them all off as nothing but stories. But he looks at me with that same demeanor he had in the classroom, with that calm demeanor, and he says, "Oh yeah, I've had some things happen to me." So the bottom drops out a bit for me, He's this smart academic guy with a doctoral degree. He's the chair of the art department, and I would assumed that he would be familiar with these stories, but just kind of regard them as stories, and that was it. The mythology of the art department, but he didn't. So he told me his story. One night he'd been working late, sometime in the last several years, and he was probably the only person in the art building at the time. He said it was sometime before midnight, sometime in the 11 o'clock hour. He was walking back to his office. Now the hallways on the first floor were curved like an oval, so you can kind of see behind you, but there's no clear direct line of sight as you're walking down the halls. So he's walking down the halls, and as he's walking, he hears footsteps. Now again, he thinks he's alone, but he recognizes that, people have access to the building, someone could be there. So he keeps walking, but he said he started to pick up his pace a little bit, mostly just to avoid having to talk to anybody that late at night. But these footsteps behind him are keeping up. So he continues on his pace. Hearing these footsteps behind him as he turns a corner, he looks back to see who the footsteps belong to, but he doesn't see anyone, and the footsteps stop.
What?
So he opens the door to his office, and he kind of pulls the door closed behind him. After closing the door, he pauses. He told me he was real curious about who was in the building this late at night other than him, since he thought he was alone. The footsteps he heard get closer and closer until he hears them right outside his door. This person walked right up to his door and stopped. So he calls out, "Hello? Can I help you?" And he hears nothing in response. So he waits a few beats. The silence is kind of killing him because as far as he can tell, there's someone standing right outside his door. So suddenly he grabs the knob and just throws the door open, only to find there's no one there. He said he left all of his belongings. He just straight up left in a hurry that night. He told me this with a bit of a wink and a nod, like he believed he was telling the truth as far as I could tell. So skip ahead a month. I'm always in the art building after hours doing classwork in the computer lab because I didn't have my own computer at the time. There's no one else in the lab, and the rules of using the building after hours were that after 7 p.m., all the lights needed to be off in the building, and especially when you leave, so as not to waste electricity. So by default, no hall lights, room lights, everything was dark in the building, really dark. I'm working on this class project. It was about 11:30-ish, close to midnight, and as I'm working, I just get this feeling. Like all the hair on the back of my neck stands up. This kind of weird lizard brain danger alarm starts going off in my brain, like you're being watched. I still don't know how to explain it, and it still makes me get the chills a little bit to this day. And so I kind of like tunnel vision into my computer monitor, unable to turn or move while this is happening, when I get that feeling that I think we all recognize when somebody's just walking up behind you, and then suddenly there's a hand on my right shoulder. I turn because I'm expecting a classmate or my girlfriend at the time, and I'm kind of relieved because I'm thinking, oh, cool, one of them is here, but there's no one there. And kind of startled, I stand up right away, kind of like in a dash. And I look around the room to see if anyone was hiding, but there's no one there. The room is empty. So I calm down, and I figure it must be because I'm tired. I've been doing a lot of late nights in the lab. So I figure I'm tired. I get up and I make my way to the bathroom to, splash some water on my face. My mind hasn't really, made anything of this experience just yet. Now the bathroom is 2 floors down. It's in the basement of the building, and the basement had street access on one side. So I had to go down to the basement in the dark, and I'm obviously a little freaked out about that prospect. So, I'm turning on the lights. I left my books in my bag upstairs as I go. So I go down to the bathroom in the basement, and the bathroom is in this long hallway that kind of connects to the east and west side of the building. And there's no other rooms other than the men's room and like kind of a locked boiler room that only like custodial staff have access to. But the hallway was dark when I got down there. So either way, I go over to the sink and I'm washing my hands and I'm splashing water on my face. And then I think, though muffled by the closed door, I hear footsteps down the hall outside. And it's weird because I didn't think anyone else in the building, but it's a 3-story building and it's the size of a gymnasium, so there could be somebody there. And I remember I had left the hall light on. So I walk up to the door to leave, and I hear somebody knock on the opposite side of the door. Like someone had used the knuckles of their fingers. My hand was already on the handle of the door, so I just pull the door open right away. And not only is there no one there, but the hallway is dark. Like, someone had turned the light off, too. There's no way someone could have knocked and ran to the either end of the hall where the light switch was and done that. No way. There's street access, I remember, through the wood shop in the building, so I just go full sprint from the bathroom to the wood shop. I remember potentially leaving the lights on in the computer lab, and my computer was on, so I already have said that that's going to stay on for the night. I'm running, expecting to hear footsteps or something, but thankfully I make it outside into the night and keep running until I'm about 200 feet from the building. And I turn around, and the building is dark. Everything is dark. The lights are off. Even I can see the light from the computer lab is off. So I decide, I guess I don't need to do work in that building anymore at night. I never worked there at night again. There was another building, a new building across campus that had a lab I could access, so that became my spot instead. I still wonder to this day if anyone else working the art building at night has ever heard that sound at night, though. I'd hear stories from that point forward of other folks having similar experiences. I bet whoever or whatever is there is still following around people, knocking on doors.